There is a hole here, and this one looks infamous. If reality means that as long as something's plugged in, like into the ground and alive, such as a tree, you could use its hatchet as the wood. This one, church and state. No different than how a spark plug is. A pump has a small thing. A spigot versus an outlet. If you get both of those things tapped down, then you'll be able to just open your hand and create a hatchet like Nightwolf. If something is a makeshift, it means it can have dual compatibility. And the more that something is a component of two things, it can operate, but how well it's sharpened, or how well you know how to use something that's sharpened, can undermine both ways if not done properly. And that's where the artistry comes in to hardware. But if you don't know a maximum artistry of like how to make something sealed, then the thing that's sharpening can get dulled that much quicker, and throwing away material, like when it's not used properly, is like a curse on itself. That's certainly something that's too hot to handle can taste that as well. Dual compatibility. I know I'm throwing up a lot of information, but it's real important that if you have the keys to an entire building, that you can go into prohibited areas, because none of them are prohibited on your property, and you can lock doors, and if people will get stuck outside of a locked door, that's a gain function that you can utilize as a whole bunch of wood has a bit of sap in it, and that's how you can use to excavate whatever fungus may or may not be on it as a 0 or 1 for binary code reading and breaching and execution software properly. And how much trash could this be a disease if a tobacco batch was bad? And then there was a whole bunch of ones that couldn't get accounted for and was on the ground. It would be a gain into it and mimicked it. How many of these are there? Also, and if you're in a business, you get perks such as areas and locations where you can perform stuff that should have patents on it, but you can never get caught. That's why Batman had a bat cave, and it would be optimal if an entire planet was flat, so you could use that as your basement if there's metal everywhere on its curved surface. I almost left these two things here. So I've just seen like more retarded people than I have in 2 years in the last like 10 minutes. And it was all in a place where I hadn't been in a year, and all the furniture had changed. And so they also had like a card indexed in it. And then I went to this other place and I noticed that it had the card index in it. And that's only because I noticed the furniture was missing. So if I didn't notice the first indication of the card index being there in the second location that I was more familiar with, I wouldn't have noticed it there the whole time, because I hadn't thought anything of it, so subliminally it didn't exist. In a leaky symmetry, there can also be a faulty product, where if any of the products that you buy on a consumer basis aren't up to par, that means that there can be a hole in the ground and on the wall in different sizes, but it would be the same. Because when Batman was running down a wall, he was doing it probably because he didn't own it, but it was public and his life was in danger. Because if you have a leaky symmetry, that means that operations are going to corrupt more easily. And they can corrupt more easily if your skill set's low, and how you build up your skill set is having all the ducks lined up and eggs not in one basket. To make a message on my phone get sent, but I can't touch the screen in the corner because it's cracked. So in order to send a number of a picture of a screenshot, I had to open a program but couldn't. You can have all the ducks lined up and not all the eggs in one basket. You're able to do two, but then if it's war, it could be like having your cake and evening it too is twice as bad. The catch-22 be embedded with, and what that means is the ability of keeping it without it being unhealthy, and that gets done by washing. So what had restored, I almost left these two things here. Other than the dandruff, it's like a whisker because it's that coarse. Other than the dandruff, it's like a whisker because it's that coarse and that well pronounced. That's where I shot it. Because you're always shedding hair all the time, you don't notice it unless it's a really big hair, but you have like 4 different hair groups, and some of them are baby hairs around the with a conditioner from all of them mixed up equally. What would happen if you added in? Strings are in their different attributes of cleanliness. Is they're gonna collapse or get back together and reform? Is the difference between hair being different. What are you doing with it is all a product of any building. And the cast molds are as such, where you're trying to label them into what could be profitable. What kind of a powder would make it to be as paste to go on the sides on either end? It was paste like if you make powder into a liquid form, but what kind of powder would be of paste and an aerosol and able to make it look thinner, like the baby hair that falls out? And when baby hair falls out, it can't get too long to tuck behind your ear because it is like falling out before it can grow that long because it just gets its growth stunt. And so the amount of grease in your hair also is like sticking around, but then it falls out, but you want to spread it around by not trying to eliminate it from washing your hair too much. And the more it can do that, and you have hands oppositely, if someone washes your hair, those hands are like brushing your teeth where the plaque is gone and it is in the cast mold if you don't wash it correctly. And then it'll just have that cast mold of the grease inside your hair follicles if it gets washed oppositely from someone washing your hair and you laying backwards, because it's not used to getting washed in that shape, so the grease would be looking in a different manifold. If you have baby hair, that means that it's combining with really curly hair, but if it all gets together, then it will be like whiskers. And the hair at the sides of my head and at the back end, the back ends are more coarse, and it's like a whisker on a possum. When they all combine together in aerosol, it can come out as a powder, as dry shampoo, but it doesn't have different parts of the powder having different grains, because if you're trying to gather a whole bunch of sap, one thing that could seem like a honey pot, this is what OJ, the Juice Man, no, Juice WRLD said. He's in a wooden bowl. A vertical. And what that means in camping videos is a tent. But a tent is the top of a roof. And in Paris, Owen Wilson was in a movie and he broke up with the girl and she's like, why don't you just go look at all the ceilings in Paris some more? Because they had walked through the rain in Paris because they said they liked it. But in any case, the roof is a vertical from in between two beams. And there's this one beam that's the middle beam. If you get it wrong, it's like the top of an igloo. fell off because the keystone did. The keystones in its door and behind the door are both verticals that beams are axes of in order to make the tent vertical shape.